Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening. You've reached Black Authors Matter TV, and it is June 6th. We're in the month of June. It's hard to believe. We are going to have another amazing show for you this week. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, and my co-host Rhonda Lawson will be joining us shortly. So she had a great European vacation, and we'll be glad to have her back. So before we bring on our first guest, I have a few announcements. First of all, if you want to attend the National Black Book Festival in October as a registered author, our space is getting filled up. We are at 83% capacity. So if you all are still planning to attend, don't wait too long. The next thing I want to tell you about is next week we have one of our book club kickbacks. We're discussing Connie Briscoe's new book, You Never Know. And we'll have about 5 book clubs on screen with us to discuss the book, and we'll have her on as well. So that'll be really, really amazing. And for those who want to know what the next book is after that, we're having the book club kickback on September 5th with Victoria Christopher Murray and her new book, The First Ladies. So that book comes out at the end of this month. So that gives you a couple of months to read it. And so we're looking forward to that. So we are ready for, and for the Black Authors Matter Children's Book Awards, the deadline was yesterday. So if you didn't get it in, you have to wait till next year. We got a lot of submissions. So we're looking forward to having the panel of judges judge all the books and then present the list of finalists to you in August. So our first guest that we have on tonight is an author. Her name is Chevel Nelson. And she's an author and poet. She has a new book that she released recently. So she's going to tell us a little bit about her philosophy, why she wrote the book that she did. The title of her book is called My Gay Ain't Happy. And she says she was inspired by something Toni Morrison said. So we'll let her explain all that to you. So welcome, Chevel, to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I was having all kinds of technical difficulties here.
Well, I saw you log on and off, so I said, well, hopefully
one of these devices was going to work. We were going to make something work. The laptop acted like didn't want to work. The desktop acted like I'm just so grateful that I got all kinds of devices. I'm like, let me grab the iPad and we're going to do this on iPad.
Okay, well, that is good. That's good because sometimes when it's live, anything can happen.
Always.
And it sometimes does. So first, give us a little bit about your background and I know you're a poet. And how did you turn the poetry into a book? I know your book is not a book of poetry, but
it is
how did you turn your love of poetry? How did that evolve into writing this book?
I have been writing since I was 12 years old, and I've been writing poetry since then. It's just always been what I've done and what I love words. I actually co-authored 2 other books that were poetry books. And it was my friend who was my co-author that said, you have so much more in you. And so I said, okay, I'm going to write a book. And it was not this book. It was a totally different book.
Okay.
However, one day, all of the things that I had in my head for that book disappeared. And 2 characters showed up. And their story showed up in my head. I didn't know these characters. I know none of the characters in my book. And they just would show up. Some nights I would be sleeping and they would wake me up. And I decided, okay, let me try and go ahead and see if I can do this. I complained for 2.5 years. And literally it took me 7 months to write the book. So I complained more than I actually wrote. Toni Morrison said that if you want to read a book and it has not yet been written, then it's your responsibility to write it. And I have, I don't want to sound cliche, but I have gay friends and I've heard some of their stories and I'm like, their stories aren't as happy as you see on TV, everybody seems happy. Their stories weren't happy. And so I decided to take it upon myself and just do a lot of research. I watched a lot of documentaries and I just started really becoming an ally because I realized that I wanted to speak for people who are considered disenfranchised. But I also wanted people to know that it doesn't matter if you're gay, you're straight, you're Black, you're white, you're Latino, we all feel the same. Our feelings are all the same. We all hurt the same. We all are disappointed the same. And how do we get over that? And what makes it, how do we make it better?
Okay. Well, some people say that when they write books, that the characters come to them when they write novels. The characters come to them. And some people say, for me, when I write fiction, which I don't write a lot of fiction, it takes me forever to write fiction. I'm more of a nonfiction writer, but we're actually working on something now. The story comes to me, like the general story, and some of the characters are people that I've met or seen or know, and then I create the characters around those people. But you said they came to you, and I've heard several authors say that.
Yeah,
that write fiction. The character, some of them say the character kept them up at night and things like that.
Woke me up out of my sleep. I couldn't think without somebody. It felt like somebody was talking. Like I would be considered crazy because it felt like somebody was talking in my head. And I was like, okay. And I wouldn't. And then the one day I decided to write it and I broke my pen because I wrote so much. And when I look back, it was 30 pages that I wrote on a character I knew nothing about. And I was like, okay, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And like one of my final characters came out of the blue, wasn't even part of the whole, like I look at the book outline that I had, wasn't even part of the outline and just came out of the blue. And I was like, okay, I'm going to write this. And anybody, if you read enough of the book, you'll see little small smidgens of me in the book because I've been hurt, I've been disappointed, I've been devastated. We all have been. And it felt good. When I first finished it, I just wanted to release it. I was like, I'm just going to release it. I'm done. I'm happy it's over. And a friend said to me, you wrote an impactful book. You should release it impactfully. So that it was released on my birthday.
Which was?
May 30th. And it was,
okay.
Everybody said, did you have a good birthday? I said, I wrote a book and I put it out.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I said,
you are a fellow Gemini.
Yes, I am.
I'm on the other end. I'm on the cusp. June 20th.
You're right there. So you're at the end in the June. You're
like June 20th.
So you're like one of my friends. We get in trouble. So I digress. You can't. I think
there's a difference. My husband and I and our daughter are all Gemini. So that just worked out.
So I say that because my son's a Gemini too. His birthday was Friday. So it's like I'll say one word and he'll be like, well, I'll laugh at something. And he says, you were wrong for that. And I'm like, get out of my head. You already know what it is. So I'm like, get out of my head. He's like, you're wrong for that. Like, okay,
so is your book fiction or nonfiction?
It is fiction. It is fiction.
Okay, so it's a story, and who are the main characters, and what is it?
There are 13 main characters. So it's short stories as introductions into each of these characters.
Okay.
So there are 13 of them, and they each, go figure, I finished the book and then it was like, oh, it's going to be a series. So each character is going to have their own book. So you can see how they got to the point that you read about them in this book.
So you're going to do 13 books?
I'm already working on the second one.
So over what period of time? How quickly are they going to come out?
I'm probably going to do 2 a year.
Oh, that's a lot of writing. Now, would these be novellas or full novels?
These will be full novels. Yeah.
So that's a lot of writing.
You know what actually happened, I'll be honest with you, Glenn, is I sat here and I thought about how much time I spend on unnecessary things. And so I'm like, you know what? I can just switch that time over. Instead of watching CSI or Law and Order, I could sit and write something down, right? Even though that's like how I digress, but I could actually sit and write a little bit at a time. And that's what I did. I went and got a keyboard for my iPad. So then that way, if I'm on the train, while I'm commuting into work, I'll just write something real quick. I carry a notebook at all times with a pen. I'll come home and just sit on the bed and let the TV play, and then I'll just put it on the laptop. I just put out whatever comes out. They're here, and I'm not crazy, but they're here, and they just speak and they come out. They have stories to be told, and I'm just really excited because writing is something that brings me joy, and I think everybody deserves a small piece of joy.
Okay, do you have a copy of your book? I want to share with you so you can show the cover to
come up because I'm so far away from the
camera. I think you have to put it close to you. Put it close. Okay, put it close to your body.
There we go.
Yeah, that's what makes it come out. Okay,
we'll cover my face a little bit with it. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's what it is.
I'm getting happy. So, is this?
Please make sure I get you a copy. That's what I wanted to tell you. I meant to send you one, but it's been a whirlwind since last week.
Okay. Well, when we get off, when I the end of the show,
when you get finished.
When I get finished. My co-host Rhonda is running late today, so we do the show together. But she will be on momentarily. She said she just sent me a message. If you saw me look down, so. She was running late. So you don't have a central. Oh, that's right. You said it's a series of short stories. So how do you pull it all together? Are each of the short stories like a continuum where they're connected, or are each of the short stories introducing these 13 characters?
Each of the short stories are introducing the 13 characters. Okay. However, they are all intertwined.
Okay.
Without even realizing it. So it's like the 6 degrees of separation kind of thing. Like everybody knows somebody by 6 degrees. That's exactly what this is. There are characters who know another character or has interacted with another character. So they all correlate. Okay.
All right. And how does the story start?
The story.
How does it begin? Like with your first short story, how does it begin? And is it contemporary? It's contemporary.
Yes, we put it for now. Okay. The characters are they're not young characters. So they are characters who are in like some of them are like early 30s, some all the way up into the 50s. And so the first character was a nod to my best friend who told me, make sure your first character punches, because if that first character gets people's attention, then they'll want to read more. And so the first character was actually one of the first characters that got into my head, which was Patrick. And Patrick is receiving some devastating news. Okay. And so it's literally when you turn to the second page, you'll find out everything that's going on with Patrick. I did not waste time. He just gets some devastating news. And how is he going to deal with this news?
Okay, now, are any of the 13 characters related to each other? Like blood relatives, or are they all just individual people?
There are a few blood relatives.
Okay,
There are a few relationships.
okay,
There are cousins,
okay,
and there are baby daddies and baby mamas in there too. A little
okay,
bit of something, a little bit of something. And there is a married couple in there.
okay.
And
Now, what's the
so
setting for your book? Is it in a particular city?
I'm a New Yorker. It's in New York.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of stories take place in New York. A lot of
Yeah.
movies take place in New York too. New York is the
Um,
setting for a lot.
yes, I'm a New Yorker.
You're a New Yorker.
I had to base on what I know. Like I was like, I've been in, I stayed in Georgia because I went to college in Georgia. So I was in Georgia for a while. However, New York has always been my core. So I'm like, let's just put it in New York. People might understand it a little differently from New York. We'll get the nuances that some people won't get. However, it's based in New York.
Yeah, a lot of writers I know live in New York. One that recently passed, Tracy Brown. Have you heard of her?
I believe so. So yes.
Yeah, she passed away a couple of weeks ago, like
Oh,
suddenly. And let's see, who else do I know? Quan, do you know Quan?
I do know Quan.
He's in New York, and Donna Hill's in New York, I believe. I'm trying to think. I know quite a few New York
I,
writers.
I have a really good friend who's based in New York too. She's a romance writer though, and so
Yeah,
she's based here, and so with her, she was the one when I told her the idea of the book, and she's like, "Are you ready for this? Because fiction is a beast." I was like,
I
"Okay."
agree.
She said,
Hey, some people can just really rattle off fiction, but because I'm a researcher and I'm a nonfiction writer, with fiction, you have to make up everything. Everything has to be, and now I weave reality and actually current events into my story, but you have to come up with the setting, the characters, the plot, the dialogue is what, you have to, it's challenging. It's challenging. Some people can just do a story so fast, but that's not me. But I want to ask you about your process of writing, because you talked about breaking a pen. And I wanted to know, do you start on paper?
I actually find it easier to do it on the computer. There's just
Okay.
sometimes I need to have the paper in hand, which is why the hardcover book came out first, because I'm a lover of the way a book feels in your hands. I want the book to feel good. I want the book to look good, like you want to read it. You want to keep turning the pages. So I wanted the font to be engaging. I prefer to write by hand. However, you don't always get that opportunity. And like if I'm sitting here, I know that after a while, especially after a long day of work, I'll start writing and then I'll fall out. And then I'm like, oh, what happened? I'm not as young as I used to be. So like staying up is like a chore. Once I get home, I'm like, okay, I think I'm done for the day. I always tease and say, snap, crackle, and pop, wake me up every morning. Because something either snaps, crackles, or pops.
Well, sometimes that second win, it doesn't come as easily or quickly
No.
as we get older. Like going out and then being up late and then having to get up early for work, which something you do in your 20s. The older you get, your body pays for for several days if that happens. I want to welcome my co-host back from her European vacation.
I know. Europe is everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely everything.
Several years ago, I went to Greece and I'm like, oh, I can't. Oh, y'all are just going here? Oh, no, no, no. I need to fly.
Right.
When I came back from Greece, I could not eat here for 3 weeks. I couldn't.
Yeah, the food was different.
It's fresher. And now, and from Greece, I could figure out why a tomato is a fruit. And I'm not a tomato eater because you could just pick up the tomato, wash it off, and just bite it. And it's sweet and doesn't have water in it. So it was just like, okay, yeah, I'm liking this. And what Europe showed me too was how small we are.
Yes.
Right? We make everything in our lives so big, but we're really this small compared to the rest of the world. And so it was exciting for me because it was like, okay, I can do this. And there's a whole lot of us that can do this.
Yes.
Well, my daughter is going to Greece in September, so with some of her friends. So she's excited about that. I haven't been to Europe. I've only been in this hemisphere. I've been outside of the United States, but only like South America, Caribbean, there. I haven't been to Europe yet.
You have to.
I'm planning.
I love Europe.
I was planning to go on the Mediterranean cruise, and COVID got, they messed me up. So I had to put it on. I had it booked already, and then they canceled it. So I have to put it back on my list again. But this year we're going to Alaska, so on a cruise.
Alaska's beautiful also.
So
one of my dad's best friends lived out there for the longest. So yes.
I had a good friend who lived in Alaska, and she would sometimes see the big moose walk into her yard.
With the horns.
Yes.
I've heard it's amazing. I can't wait. I'm not going to August, but I can't wait. And we were supposed to do this in 2020. This is we're supposed to go in 2020.
Just a little delayed.
Yeah, it's a little delayed. Then we switched to 2021 to the Mediterranean cruise. Then it got canceled. So we were back to Alaska, but we're going to do it, and I'm excited about it. So Chevel, Rhonda doesn't know about your storyline, and we don't want you to repeat it, but I do want, she has 13 characters and 13 short stories in her book.
Ooh.
And she is planning to do a series based on each of the characters.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, so I asked her how long she's going to occur, because that's a lot of writing.
That's
and it may seem easy at first. It may sound, it sounds good. And people who write a lot, they rattle off these kind of like every 3 months, that but when you don't write all the time, novels all the time, it can be challenging. But I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just saying,
no,
because I know when you have a vision, a lot of times when you have a vision for whatever your book is, and sometimes other people don't get it, but you get it. So that's what's important.
And that's what I said about this. I said, at first I didn't want to write it. Then I was very ecstatic that I wrote it. And now I'm excited that other people get to read it.
Yes.
I'm one of those people, like I was speaking to someone and she was like, it took me 3 weeks to write a paper in college. And I said, as long as I have the first line and the last line, I could get that paper done in like 3 days. And she's like, that's it? I said, I just need the first and the last. I need to know how I'm open and how I'm closing. Once I have those, everything else falls into place. And it's always been that way, even with poetry, even with school papers, when I was writing college papers, it's just always been that way. I think because the characters weren't something that I was like, oh, this is what I'm gonna write, and they just came to me, I think that's why their stories are coming to me so easily. Do I feel like some are a little more difficult? Yeah, there are a couple of characters that I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna have to really do a lot more research. I'm gonna have to deep dive a little bit more. I'm not afraid of work. I'm not afraid of doing the work. I'm not afraid of the research. If you know what, in all honesty, if there's a year that I only get a book out, I'm going to be grateful for that book, because that was a book that wasn't out the year before. And that's how I always try to think of everything. You know what? It wasn't exactly what I was looking at. This is what I got. I'm going to be grateful for this because this is more than what I had. Instead of sitting and contemplating, oh, I didn't do enough or I didn't get enough done. And that's it. And I'm also big on collaboration. Like I there's enough room for all of us.
Absolutely.
There is so
Absolutely.
much room for all of us. And I just want to embrace that. And I want people to know that. And I'm loving the atmosphere that I'm getting now when I'm speaking to women of color, when I'm speaking to even men and men of color. Like we're in the arena where it's like, you know what, I'm gonna try this. And because I wrote this, how many people have come to me and told me that they had stories. I said, write it. I'm afraid. Why? I said at the end of the day, people are gonna have their opinions regardless if you write a great book or not. It doesn't matter. Everybody's gonna have an opinion.
That's true. But something else that you did say, which is we can all utilize as writers, you said you were going to put something aside that you've been doing. Instead of watching Law and Order or CSI or just, you can spend a lot of time watching TV. I know, or streaming. And I know I have to minimize that and compartmentalize it, because you can't. And I love Law and Order, by the way, not the newer one, but it's one of my favorite shows. I learned so much.
My son would come in here and he would ask me a question. I said, I'm watching TV, and he goes, the same show you watched 100 times that you already know how they're ending, but you're going to sit here and watch it anyway.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm like,
absolutely.
That's that Gemini rationale, because I have a Gemini. So he's like,
yeah, that's true. My daughter tells me that same.
Yeah, and
she does the same thing. But I've DVR'd like my favorite. Several channels will do marathons of Law and Order.
Yes,
I really don't like after season like 14. I don't like after that, but
it didn't feel the same. The cast didn't feel like it meshed the same.
No, it didn't.
Yeah, just like with writing, it's like they have to mesh, and if they're not meshing and you're not feeling like you're connected, you're not going to want to read them. You want to be engaged. I with everything, TV, life in general, right? You want to at least be engaged. You want to have a purpose to get up every morning to do what you have to do. And that's, however,
the writing changed. It got forced. It just felt like it wasn't natural.
Yeah.
After season 14. So, but I have my favorite episodes on DVR. I think I have about 18 episodes from different seasons. And I watch them over and out. They're the best ones.
Or I'll find myself DVRing something that I had already seen, but I'm like, okay, I need to remember what the ending was, and I'll DVR it, and I'm like, what are you doing? You know the whole episode. I could probably take some of the lines verbatim, but
the script, yeah. but that's good writing. And you know what? I would love to write a script like that people wanted to watch over and over. That really is a testament to good writing.
And that's good writing, like for the TV show. And I think as authors, that's what you want too, right? You want to be able to have good writing that people want to come back to. You want to give them something where they're like, okay, she's going to have another one coming out. All right, we're going to be ready for it. So when it comes out, they're like, oh, let's see what this is about. You want to build that following. And you also just want to give yourself just a little bit of patience, because this is not for the faint of heart. Again, like I said, I co-wrote 2 poetry books. We decided, we had even opened up a small publishing, boutique publishing house. And then we both decided this is not what we want to do for the rest of our lives, because people are very passionate about their stories. People are they hold them very close to the breast. And so we learned that people didn't want to, like, you wanted to make some changes because it would help. and people didn't want to change their stories. So it's
Right.
just, okay.
Okay.
All right. So
Okay.
we were like, yep, you know what? We weren't having as much joy as we had before. And so we said, okay, I said, let me try something different. And if it's great, I'm great. And if it's not, okay. So far I've been getting really great feedback. So apparently it's doing okay. So I'm not going to complain about it.
Okay. Well, Chevel, we're at the end of our time.
That
And
was
yeah, it
quick.
goes by
It goes very
These
fast.
interviews go by fast because they're conversational. And so let people know, show us a copy of your book again.
Okay, so we're gonna cover my face because it's not about me, it's about the book. So this is the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, just put it closer to you. Okay, my gay ain't happy. And tell people how they can get their copy of the book.
So if you want your copy of the book, you can go to chevelnelsonauthor.com and you can just purchase it there. It'll be available next week. It should be available on Amazon, and it'll be hopefully soon even on Barnes and Noble. So you can get that there, and the ebook should be ready by the end of the month.
Okay, well, congratulations on the release of the book
Thank
and the beginning of your 13 book series.
Oh, it's 14 because if you start
Well, that's true.
Yes,
That's
because
true.
if you start a book, you have
With
to end
that, okay. So the next 13 books, how's that?
Yes, yes. Well, like
Well,
I said, we're on the next book already. Now it's just
good. Well, we
now
did put your website in the chat, so
thank
the
you.
audience can go to the website so they can keep up with the series.
Yes, they can keep up with the series. It'll always tell you what one is coming. There is actually going to be a book in between the series because
Okay.
I'm massive on motivating and inspiring. And so I am doing something just small, a little small, like a book you could put in your pocket that has daily real life inspirations. Like, like when you wake up and you say, I just can't. Like that'll be a title. Like, I just can't. I don't want to get up. I don't want to do this. I don't want to run on the hamster wheel. I just want to, because that's what it feels like, right? And so I'm doing that for this year because the next book in this series is going to come out next year. And I kind of want to correlate it so that that it'll probably come out similar timing. However, by next year, I'll be ready to sit for Pride and stuff like that. So it'll fall more in line.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chevel, for
Thank
being a
you.
guest
Have
on
a
Black
wonderful.
Authors Matter TV. And congratulations again on your books.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You
You
too.
too.
God bless you.
God bless you too. Stay blessed.
Okay. Well, Rhonda, we're so happy to have you back. And
Kind of, I'd rather be chilling in Paris, but it's all good.
I know. I said when I grow up, I want to be like you. So we do have 2 books to give away, but we'll do that.
Yeah, let's
after.
do it.
Well,
Okay.
we're running a little behind on our next interview,
Yeah.
so let's do it after that.
Okay.
So our next guest is Jade Simmons, and she's a speaker and she's an artist, a concert artist, not a painting artist. Or she may be a painting artist too, but a concert artist, a speaker and author, and she's the CEO of Jade Media Global.
Wonderful.
So she's also an author, and she's going to talk about her books and just her mission, her passions. And we welcome you to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me. You out here giving me more jobs, it sounds like. I gotta start painting a little bit of something, right?
Well, I saw them painting behind you. I said, well, that those could be her.
I do stuff like that for fun, but that's not a part of the profit model. You got my team all worried that they needed to get something ready. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, you're welcome.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah.
So tell us about your book. Is Purpose the Remix,
Yeah.
and you focus on purpose, and that's a good mission because many people don't really know, or they haven't figured out what
Yeah.
their purpose is.
Yeah.
We all have at least one, but
listen, I got a feeling I'm talking to some other multifaceted, multi-passionate people. I saw all your guests were what I call slash artists, author slash speaker slash. And I'm definitely one of those. And lo and behold, look, I just happen to have the book right here, sitting
Boom.
Purpose the Remix. It's a
okay.
mind-blowing re-understanding of purpose and how it works. It's like you said, Gwen, I believe, unfortunately, the majority of people on earth will live and die without ever clearly uncovering what purpose is. And I don't think it's because they don't find purpose. I think a lot of it's because we've been thinking purpose is the wrong thing. So the thing that I've been saying, this little statement got me in trouble 8 or 9 years ago now. I said this from a stage. I said, your purpose is not the thing you do. It's the thing that happens in others.
Yes.
Do what you do. So just as a quick, it's just a little shift
Right.
there. I'm sitting by this piano. This is, this instrument has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. Gwen mentioned me being a concert artist. I'm a concert pianist, classically trained. And for years, I thought my purpose was to play this instrument. And it better have been as much money as we spent on piano lessons and schools and camps. And I got to really achieve a lot of what I wanted in my early career, played with orchestra, played in the White House, at the US Supreme Court. I was out
Beautiful.
there doing the thing.
Yes.
You know that thing that happens when you're doing what you said you wanted to do, and then you're sort of feeling like, is there something else? And I think a lot of us bat that feeling to the side because we go, no, my purpose is to do this thing. For me, it was to play the piano. And we think our purpose is to teach. It's to be a doctor. It's to run a charity. And what I've realized is your purpose is actually that outbreak effect that's happening in the room because you're in it. Just so happens I can get that effect playing the piano. I can get that effect writing a book. I can get that effect as a minister. I can take that purpose now and allow it to ride out in other vehicles. So your purpose is that outbreak that's happening in people because of the fact that it's you doing the work that you're doing.
That's beautiful. And it makes you really look at what it is that you do or what you feel that you're meant to do. It makes you look at it totally different. I mean, in simple terms, it's not what you do, but how what you do makes people feel.
That's it. And what it makes them do. So if I were to go back and interview some of your friends, Rhonda, now I've only seen you for the first time, only known you for about 3 minutes now. I can read some mail. I have a sneaking suspicion that the people who love you, the people who come tell you all their business, look into them eyes and know that you're going to see straight through all the beep. I just get a feeling now. I'm guessing there. And they know now when I bring my stuff to Rhonda, she's going to say some things that I might not want to hear, but I know it's long overdue that I hear them. We'll find a thread, and you start with your loved ones and you ask really vulnerable questions like, why is it you come to me and bring me all your business? What kind of advice are you thinking I'm going to give you? Ask your loved ones, why is it you love me? Because we're not all that easy to love, but there's a reason people are loving us the way they do. Or questions in a professional setting, what happens when I come into the room? What's that thing that shifts, that happens? For me, we saw in a lot of my keynote speaking, people were saying the same thing over and over. I feel like I can do anything, or I never thought of it that way. So we started to see this activation of new, bolder behavior and this change in perspective. But we had to investigate that, right? You don't just pick purpose. You look back and see how you've always been behaving and what's always been breaking out. And then you intentionally say, you know what? I've got this gift of activation and this gift of perspective shifting. Let me audition it now on purpose. And so as I did that, I discovered my purpose was not to play the piano. My purpose was to activate audiences into being a bigger, bolder version of themselves, the one I believe God has created them to be. And I do that through piano, writing, speaking, and apparently now painting, thanks to you too. Yeah.
So
Well,
is that,
I have a, oh, go ahead, Ron.
well, no, I was just going to ask, is that basically what you're discussing in Remix the Purpose?
Yeah,
Or Purpose the Remix, excuse me.
Purpose the Remix. So as a musician, you know, I started out playing solely the classics: Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Chopin, um,
Mm.
and today my concerts go from Rachmaninoff to rap. So I might start out with a classical version of Flight of the Bumblebee, but by the end of that night, you hear a hip hop version that has electronic beats, and maybe I rap on top of it. And you say, well, what happens in that experience? Why would you do that? If you started with the classics, how did you end up in this crazy place? Well, over time, I started bringing more of who I really was to the table. You know, as an African-American female, I was playing concerts where nobody in the room looked like me, was in the same age bracket as me. And the wild thing is, I didn't have a diversity initiative. All I knew was to just keep showing up and being who I was. Over time, I
Yes.
started adding speaking. I started daring to mix elite music and street music. And the wild thing is the audience organically diversified itself. So what was happening was I had to let go of the fear of, is a Black woman allowed to do this in classical music, and understanding if it's in me, it's allowed. If it's in me, it's allowed to come out. So this remix is saying now that your purpose isn't caught up in this one thing that you do. The purpose really ends up being a culmination, a reflection of all the things that make you who you are. And it's that combination that creates that unique outbreak effect. There were a gazillion other classical pianists. But if
Yes.
you were to Google, and I said this, and it was a pretty hot reel that we didn't know was going to go viral. But what I said in it was, listen, you could Google classical concert pianists, you're going to find a gazillion of them. But if you Googled Black female classical concert pianist who goes from Rachmaninoff to rap with world-class storytelling in between and life-altering inspiration that assured you were not going to leave the same way you came.
That sounds like a show I need to see.
Exactly. Now, see, you weren't necessarily signing up for the all Mozart program. When I told you that, it appealed. And the funny thing is, all I was doing was being more of me. It wasn't a gimmick. These were all things that were part of who I'd always been, but I hadn't dared to bring them in to this concert setting. So I tell that story in the book, but the book is written to help you uncover what purpose has always been for you. And it's a nice short read because most people have been searching their whole life. I didn't want them to have to get through 300 more pages just to get to purpose. So by chapter 6, you're going to be able to start to uncover what purpose is. I give you exercises to help you get really clear on it. And then I operate in my purpose by activating you and challenging you to actually do something about what you just uncovered.
Okay. There's some sort of, it's not a test. It's some sort of scoring thing that's circulating where people can find what their strengths are or what their primary attributes are. So how does that differ, or maybe it's similar to purpose? I tell people, somebody asked me to take the test because they wanted to know what my attributes or strengths were. I said, I already know what they are. Yeah. I'm one of those people that I just have been the same since like a little girl, not with the same purpose per se, but just knowing that I had one.
Yeah.
Now that didn't mean I didn't like get off track, because I did, but I always knew I had one. Yeah. And I can't tell you where that came from. No, but not everybody has that.
Not everybody has that. One of the reasons we don't have it is because we've been sort of taught subconsciously that purpose belongs to all these really important people with names.
Right.
Documentaries. If you're not Martin Luther King, you must not have important purpose. If you're not Superman flying around with a cape, then you're just the bystander in his feature film. And so the whole first part of the book, Gwen, is dispelling the idea that there's large purpose and small purpose and almost purpose. I actually believe your purpose doesn't change, but the vehicles it rides itself out in do. And that's why you say things like, I got a little off course or I took a detour. Purpose came with you. Now, usually as we get older, purpose is waiting on us in a new vehicle and we're going, well, I'm comfortable here. I've been here a while. I've put in my time. And purpose is like, we got books to write. We have
Yes.
all these things to do and we get comfortable, especially if we thought purpose is the thing we do. You know, if you say,
And
man,
that's when we let emotion and feeling get in the way of purpose.
we
That's
need
true.
another hour. We need a
Mm,
whole
yeah.
other hour. You must have
But
read the
even
book.
when you get off path, even that is part of your purpose.
Come on.
Because you won't really be able to embrace it until you like go somewhere where you shouldn't be. Then you say, okay, I know I'm not supposed to be here. Let
Yeah,
me get
yeah.
back where I'm
Sometimes you have
supposed to
to.
be.
Sometimes you have to go here to realize you're supposed to be here.
Right, you do.
Let me just pack my stuff and go because apparently y'all got purpose all figured out. You don't even listen. We've been having this incredible phenomenon happen where every interview we've been on, and I believe this is a divine thing. I believe God's been in charge of some pretty incredible setups where all of the hosts that I've had the honor of being able to speak to, you don't even realize that you're literally speaking chapters of the book right now. There's a whole chapter about not letting your emotions knock you out of purpose, right? Sometimes we'll pray these big prayers. Oh God, I'll go wherever you want me to go. Purpose, I'll follow you wherever. And then it's like, oh, but not over there. I don't want to go over there. I don't want to work with them. I don't, and we'll make all these excuses based on how we feel. The mandate around purpose, it's a nice warm feeling when we feel like we're uncovering purpose, but purpose is serious. It's serious about its job. We're so serious that we want this book in at least 1 billion hands, because we say if 1 billion people uncover individual purpose, that is 1 billion more solutions the world did not have before that discovery. I take it very seriously because had I stayed believing my purpose was to simply play the piano, you and I would not be talking today. I would have never written any books. This is my second book. I would have never started corporate speaking. And I would have thought, well, look, I'm living the dream, right? I'm traveling the world, playing these concerts in these incredible concert halls. And even success can sometimes keep us in a detour state, Gwen, because we're thinking, well, I'm achieving, right? I'm doing all the things, I'm checking off the boxes. But because of that shift to understanding my purpose wasn't to impress audiences to death, but it was to activate people into life, that broke me into new rooms. I mean, why is the concert pianist? So today my career is made by, I'm brought in by Fortune 100 companies. You think of Hershey's, NBC, Universal, Nationwide, you name it. They're bringing me in to speak on, not music, not piano. They're bringing me in to speak on leadership, innovation, creativity, change mastery. And it just so happens a piano comes with me wherever I go. So I use music to drive my points home. Talk about your gift making room for you. Purpose has made room for me in unexpected places that I have no business being in if you just go by what degrees I have. But we're honored to be one of the, my company, Jade Media Global, we just got this really cool ranking a couple of weeks ago that I was named one of the top female keynote speakers in the nation.
Wow.
When you look at that, thank you. But that comes from that switch, right? Making the shift from thinking it was what I do to understanding, man, it's not about me showing off a performative display for an audience. Nothing wrong with that. I'm skilled enough to do it. But it's now about this powerful act of service that happens between me and the audience. That's changed everything. It's the reason we're speaking today. And I believe purpose has the power to do that for everyone who takes the time to uncover it.
Okay, now what made you pursue something beyond the piano?
Yeah.
Like, was there an intervening event? Was it
there always
passing
is
a certain milestone?
Yeah, and I talk about this in the book as well. I talk about this from stage a lot. I was having an incredible early career playing on all the stages I'd wanted to be on. And I had the most random bout of stage fright kick in. Was so unusual because I've been playing since I was a child, loved being in front of audiences, was never spooked by them. And that came with also this recurring issue of memory slips where you're playing something and you just forget where you are in the music. And in order to get through that, you do that enough times, you can completely wreck your career in the world of classical music. It's that hypercritical. In order to get through this tension, I started telling stories in between the music. So I play a little Mozart, then I talk to the audience. And what I didn't realize was happening is I was creating this rapport between me and the audience. And for them, it was such a delight because they were used to musicians coming out
And just playing
And
straight
not
through.
talking.
you sit, you bow,
Right.
and then you get up and you go home, and they never even hear your voice. And I always joke that one of the most profound moments for me, I came out and I bowed, and I just said something so deep. Can I tell you what I said to my audience?
Sure,
What'd you
please.
say?
I said, "Hello." That's it. Hello. And they were like, "Oh, she's brilliant." It was for me, it was the most natural thing. And a lot of times purpose is hemmed up in the most natural thing that you do, but you take it for granted. And it made
Yes.
me a unicorn in the world of classical. Now you'll see all these classical musicians talking from the stage, and I take at least 85% credit for the fact that they're all talking from the stage now. Back in the day, nobody was doing it. It was such a huge differentiator that people started saying, book that piano girl who talks. Get that one. We want that lady who talks. That took on a career of its own because the corporate world, long story very short, somebody from the corporate world heard me speak at an arts event. And then I was brought in to speak at a corporate event. That's where Hershey's was in the room, Walmart, McDonald's was in the room. And from there, I started getting corporate bookings with my piano. So I had become a unicorn in the classical world from speaking. Then I became a unicorn in the speaking world from playing.
Well,
And
that's totally inspiring. Now, what would you say? Because listening to your story, there are probably people who are watching, myself included, who maybe feel that they are trying to find their purpose. How can they help make their purpose make room for them? I mean,
yes,
because when you realized your purpose, it helped you to open doors to even more opportunities. So how can somebody do that?
well, I think the first thing is taking the bold step of daring to say, I know I've been doing one thing for a long time, but have I been operating in purpose? Women, especially, we
Mm.
are professionals at doing a thing because we can or because we have to, and we're loyal and we can work in someone else's purpose for a really long time. So that first step is taking the time to uncover what purpose really is. So you start by looking for what that outbreak effect has been, taking note of that. Then that next step, Rhonda, that you're talking about is saying, now where else can this outbreak effect take me? And now it comes down to saying yes. A lot of the people in my audiences, when I leave, they say, I had been hiding out from this one thing, or an opportunity came by recently and I didn't think I was qualified for it. And they really understand now that your life, nobody else has a PhD in being Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson. Nobody. Only she has the PhD in being her. And that in and of itself has expertise in that. And we want to begin to look at what's the personal expertise that I now can offer that might bring me in the rooms that I hadn't thought of being in before.
Okay, I have a question about being a concert pianist
Okay, tell me.
from a small child. What do you think, what qualities in a person makes a person gravitate to concert pianist? Like I know you had lessons, but was it natural too? Some people will have lessons and it's still not natural to them.
Yeah, most people. I hear that a lot after I play or have a keynote. Someone will say, I used to play, and I end up bringing people on stage who have never played, which is always fun. But what came naturally for me is the emotion in the music. Even before I understood, you study the historical periods of each of the composers. And even before I knew what Rachmaninoff should sound like, I instinctively understood what it should sound like. And as a little girl, what set me apart was that emotion. I played with a lot of passion. I could never, just sit still at the piano and play it. I moved a lot. And so that emotion was a big trademark for me. And that came naturally. My parents didn't have to make me practice, but I was an overscheduled, overachieving, typical American kid in that way, that I played multiple sports, multiple instruments. And I think I singled in on piano because no other instrument gave me that all encompassing feel. I joke a lot about my early teachers. They were not, they weren't my favorite. I mentioned them in the book, and I don't want to spoil that story because it's a pretty interesting one. And it was my third teacher who took the time to really see that I was different, and really created curriculum for me, and then passed me on to a fourth teacher who knew I was in middle school. We needed to get ready if I was serious about this for college auditions, and made sure I went to the right camps and teachers. So there's that combination, right, of desire, of discipline, and of support. So we need to know there are a lot of would-be professional
Yes,
artists in our public schools, especially, that don't have access to things like private lessons, which are same thing in sports. You can play
right.
on a team in high school, but if you're not in a club team, the chances of really ascending are few and far between. So I am very blessed in that way, that I've had parents who sacrificed a lot for me to be able to do all the things that I've done. And we talked about being multifaceted. I was the kid who always did way too much. And I was always told, you need to choose one thing. You gotta be focused. And I could not for the life of me, Gwen, choose one thing. And I'm happy to say now that I think a large part of the success of my business is because I refuse to choose one thing.
One
The one
thing.
thing we have chosen is purpose now. And we look forward to building out tons of vehicles that serve more people than we ever could if we just stayed in one lane.
Okay. Now, were your parents musical? Did they play
Yes,
instruments?
my mother plays piano. She was the church pianist growing up. So
Okay.
I spent many a Sunday and Wednesday and all that stuff down at church while she was practicing. And my father is an amateur musician. He's played African drums all my life, and I attribute my incredible sense of rhythm and my obsession with all things drumming to him. So, and he also is very musically diverse and exposed me to a lot of different types of music, which I think, today I incorporate African drumming tracks, electronics, hip hop, jazz, and blues into everything that I'm doing.
I have we only have 3 minutes left. What would you say to young people? Because a lot of our young people, which really does concern me,
Yeah.
they don't have the support, the parental support, because parental support when you're growing up, you could say it's almost everything.
Huge. Yeah.
What do you say for those children who have a passion, they have a gift, they have a talent, because everybody has one?
Yeah.
What do
I
you say for them?
I do believe that there is support waiting for us in unexpected places. I don't believe that God is cruel enough to give us talent and not provide avenues for them. So I think sometimes we may have to look for support in unexpected places. And I think maybe even the question now is to the adults that are in the position to become the unexpected support. As a company, I want us to be able to one day sponsor kids in arts programs and pay for college tuition. And, we do that on a small scale now. But I think that's what kids don't even know they need, what kind of support they need.
That's
So
true. That
I
is
think
true.
this
Because
question,
when you grow up having it, you almost take it for granted
you make it. Tell
until
me,
you
hold on, can I just get my kids? Can I just get my kids in for a second? Yeah,
yes.
yeah. You do. And then I think the kids who grow up without it don't even know to look for it because they're so used to not having it. So I
Right.
think the onus now has to be on those of us who are in a position to give more than we thought we were going to need to use what we have as extra to be a part of supporting and uncovering purpose in young people. I believe that discovering purpose, the earlier we can discover it, the easier it is to stay on track. The less detours we take down roads that we can't come back from. When we really know we are living for a specific why and that we uniquely are designed to make an impact, there's a staying power that comes with that discovery. And I would love for myself, my company, and this book to be a part of that inspiration you're talking about. So thank you so much for all the time you've given me.
Oh, you're welcome. And tell people how they can get your book and how they can connect with you on social media and so forth.
Sure. I'm easy to find at jadesimmons.com. You'll find all of our social
Okay.
media handles there. I love hanging out in real time on Instagram at official Jade Simmons. You can find Purpose the Remix, especially on Amazon. And we have an Audible version, so I can read it to you. If you don't have
Okay.
time to read, just put it on CarPlay and you will hear me talk it through. But be forewarned, you cannot unhear what you're going to hear. I pray that it just sparks activation like never before in the hearts and minds of your listeners. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And you've had an amazing career. Thank you for sharing it. There's so many guests we've had on the show that have not the same story, similar stories. Yours is different because you're giving people a purpose, but people have some amazing careers. That's
Right.
one thing that you get to see all the different things that people have done over their careers. And the beauty is that they're not done. You know, they're raring to go, just getting started
You're right.
on the next phase. So thanks again, Jade, for being a guest on the show. Congratulations on our success. And thank you for writing the book
Thank you.
about purpose.
I look forward to talking soon.
Okay. Have a good night. Okay. My co-host went somewhere. I don't know where. But anyway, we're going to give away 2 books. I'm going to give them away after the next interview. So I'm just going to let you know what the books are. This one is called The Probability of Everything. These are ARCs. These are advanced reading copies. This is by Sarah Everett. And this one's called Even If the Sky is Falling. It is an anthology. There's 6 authors that are included. So we will do the trivia at the end of the next interview and give away the book. So our next guest has a new book that I think comes out June 20th, which is a couple of weeks from now. And just happens to be my birthday. So Pamela, I was saying your book comes out on my birthday, but it's not out yet. So you've been on the show before with your last book, and we welcome you back to Black Authors Matter TV.
Yeah, this is thank you for having me, first of all. And this is like my first authorly event in like months, and I was so nervous because I'm like rusty, but I remember how much fun I had with you all last time. So I'm like, if I need to dip my toes back in anywhere, I'm glad it's here. So thank you for inviting me again.
Well, that's good to know. That's good feedback. We tell people, sometimes people, when we talk to them before the interview, they'll be nervous and they want to, do you have any set questions? I tell them we don't have any set questions, because what we do is we have a conversation with the author. And sometimes it can be, the conversation can go different directions. So we want to talk about the book that they are bringing on to discuss and how people can get it and what it's about. But getting to know the author is just as important as knowing about the book, because the author's passions come through in what they write.
I love that. That is like, that couldn't be truer words. Yes. I have to tell, I have to figure out my why. Yeah.
You know, so I know, and we're from the same, you're from Newport News, or you live in Newport News now. Yeah. So, you know,
I used to live in Virginia Beach.
Not too far from us. Yes.
No, that's right
across
the water, or through the tunnel, I think. I'm not sure.
Through the tunnel.
Bridge, whatever. It's a lot of water in that area. It's beautiful. It's a very beautiful area. So you are a counselor by profession, a school counselor. What levels? Is it middle school or high school?
Middle school. I was a school counselor for almost a decade. And then I took some time off to go and get my PhD. And now I'm in my is it 6 or 7? It's been a while, but I think it's my 7th year of being a counseling professor. So I train like people that are, inspiring to become school counselors or clinical mental health counselors. So that's been really cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Okay,
daughter
so-
is working on her master's in teaching, her Master of Arts in teaching. And she wants to teach middle school and eventually go on to be I think she wants to be a principal, or does she want to teach on a college level one day, but she's looking at making a full career of teaching.
Middle school is my favorite level. Like a lot of people get intimidated by middle schoolers,
See,
but
I would be intimidated by middle school because they're not quite adult, or they're not quite teenagers, but they're not kids anymore. And it's that awkward stage. And
yes,
yeah, sometimes they think they're a little bit more grown than they really are, or they
that's
think
what
they're
it is.
still kids. I don't know. This seems like a lot.
And they
They're
have
still finding
all the
themselves.
feelings. Like they feel
Yes.
everything times 1,000. So it's a lot of emotions. Like when you were going in for battle every day and like seeing who was going to come in my office crying, who was going to be best friends. But it was fun. I loved it. Yeah.
Well, middle school is pivotal because
Yeah.
normally middle school is where the students either get on the right track or the wrong track, and because they're going through puberty, and it's all kinds of stuff going on.
It's a strange time for them. Yeah.
It is. I remember.
I'm very surprised you didn't or have you considered writing about teaching and the art of teaching instead of going to fiction?
Well, I mean, I've been blessed and lucky to be able to have some kind of academic articles published before too, even before I was got to publish my book. So there are a few things that I talk about, how school counselors can form partnerships with families of color, different things about Black girls in college and career readiness. So there's a few things that I try to dabble in, and it's like, it's really weird being able to try to like switch your academic hat, and then take it off and then go back into writing. I had to do that last week. I had to like go into an academic meeting, and I'm like on deadline for my next book, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm Dr. Harris now. I'm not Pam anymore. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah.
It's wearing different hats.
Yes.
Really looking at it through 2 different lenses. It's sometimes I have to do that when I'm writing versus when I'm executing a project.
I have to use different laptops even. Like I use my university issued laptop, and that's like everything that I'm just doing academic grading, whatever on, but I can't write on that laptop. Like to me, it feels like I'm going to be always like thinking about checking my university email, or doing something else to distract me. So I have to grab something else so I can get into that creative mindset,
Well, that's good too, because all your files are all stored in a different place. So you don't have to worry about it and accidentally uploading the wrong file and sending it to the administration.
That would be paranoid. I would be worried that that's going to happen.
There was a study, people were saying they sent text messages to the wrong person. That's one of the things that ended up in causing problems. I've never done that so far, knock on wood, but that would cause, that's a good plot for a storyline for a book.
There's actually a real life like heartwarming story that someone was texting the wrong person for Thanksgiving, and they end up actually.
It was a college black guy.
Yeah.
And I think it was a white grandmother, and she accidentally texted him thinking she was texting somebody else. He said, well, you have the wrong number, but I'd still like to come over for dinner.
And they've been doing it every year. Like that's amazing.
Yes. So sometimes it can turn out good, or with a happy ending. So your new book that's coming out on my birthday,
yes,
is
happy early birthday, happy Juneteenth. Yes,
thank you. I'm excited about this birthday. So This Town is on Fire is the title.
Yes,
and I think you had just turned that one in or something when you were on the show last.
I was, yeah, I
Yeah.
was kind of,
Yeah.
I was stressed. I was asking for extensions. I mean, my editor, she's been so patient with me, you know, like juggling the full-time academic stuff. I have 2 small ones with special needs. So like things just like happen. But, you know, she's been, you know, just amazing to work with, very supportive. You know, she gives feedback in a way that's balanced. So it's like, you know, she's honest with me, but then she also makes sure to acknowledge things that I'm doing well, because I just can't hear bad stuff. So she makes sure to really kind of like, you know, sandwich that up for me, which I appreciate. But yeah, I was on struggle street, but it got done.
Not struggle street.
Struggle
Yeah.
Street. I have to use that in something. So you write for the last 2 books particularly were for young adult fiction.
Yes.
And so This Town is on Fire features 2 characters. So tell us about who they are.
Yes. So this, like, I think when like I said before, when I try to find what my next story idea is going to be, I always try to think of like, what's my why? Or sometimes I think about what really makes me angry at the moment. And the time that this story idea sparked, you know, we were still in the thick of COVID and everything. And there was a lot of social media stories about Karens. And so like, you know, basically, and Karens are those white women that, you know, tend to call the cops on Black people just for doing everyday mundane things like, you know, bird watching, having cookouts, you know, just living their lives. And so I was seeing a lot of that. And, you know, and I was thinking about, and it was kind of all like crossed together. So I thought of that, and I was having a conversation with a family member. When I grew up, my dad was military, so I transferred schools a lot. And this family member was telling me how they always had a difficult time making friends with white females. And I thought like, oh, that's odd, because every time I went to a new school, they were the ones that befriended me first. Like, so I didn't have a problem with that. So I'm thinking like, well, what would it be if I was a teen still, you know, transferring different schools, I'm really close, like I have a wide circle of white friends, and I find out that one of them did something where they put Black people in harm. And how would that make me feel? And so like I wanted to take that up a notch and like make it be these 2 girls that grew up like sisters almost. And she finds out that her sister her sister friend went viral for, you know, trying to get these 2 Black boys in trouble. And what did that mean for her? Like, so who, like, what side is she choosing? Does she stay with her white best friend, or does she like, you know, really like step up for the Black community? So I really wanted to tell that story. Yeah.
That sounds like an interesting story. Now, how do you, well, I guess it's easy for you because you're an educator, but how do you put your mind into the mind of a younger person so you can tell this story?
Yeah, that's tricky. I do a lot of things where I try to think about like my former students, like, you know, because a lot of them I kept in touch with even when they were in high school. Because it was a very small community. As a matter of fact, this book that I wrote, This Town is on Fire, is kind of like a fictionalized version of the town and the county I worked at as a school counselor. I used to work at Isle of Wight County, where it was Smithfield, the pork plant, and Windsor was on the other end. And so, you know, I really wanted, because living in a rural area where I'm like a military brat, that was either on military bases or in urban settings. And then I'm thrusted into this world of like being in a rural setting where everyone is really close knit. I had students that would have like really like bad racial slurs on their clothes, and nobody would say it. Like, it was just the norm there. Like, no one would get in trouble. He would wear it every day. I was the only school counselor, so I had to work with this student because, you know, he got into a lot of trouble. And I'm just like, I can't imagine like in my school in Newport News that this dude is going to walk down these halls and get away with, you know, wearing what he's wearing on his shirt. You know, I had students that were missing days.
Definitely not. I went to high school in Newport News. It wasn't going to be happening.
No, that wouldn't happen. And so, you know, I just found that fascinating, like, you know, because there were Black students there, you know, like I created a step team for my Black students, and they were, you know, they kind of kept in their own cliques, but there was a lot of like, you know, cross grouping too as well. And so I just kind of, you know, found it interesting that they're in this community where like, families are wearing Confederate flags. They're talking badly about Black people because my white students will come in and tell me some of the things that their parents would say. And I just like found like, what would that be like if I grew up here in this environment? And, this is what I know as a Black individual, that I have white friends and I know that their family is saying really negative things about me, but that's okay. Or is it really? So I kind of wanted to like break that down some. And like, so I really kind of went back into the experience of working in that school district for almost a decade, to kind of really help me connect with those voices,
Interesting.
Mhm.
Fun fact, my very first book, it was called Cheating in the Next Room, and it took place in Virginia Beach. And one of my main characters was a teacher in Virginia Beach.
Really? I
I love
love
how everything
that.
comes full circle like that.
Yes, full circle.
Yeah, and my parents, they're both gone, but they lived in Isle of Wight County in
Really?
Carrollton.
I
It's a
lived there when
small,
I worked, see, small world. When I worked in this
Mhm.
school district, I ended up getting an apartment there, and I stayed in that apartment for maybe like 4 or 5 years in Carrollton. Yeah.
oh, okay, and it's real small. I
It's
mean,
real
I
small.
think it has like one stoplight, and then you're in
Yeah.
Smithfield. But that's not where I grew up. My parents bought the house after we were gone.
Yeah.
After the kids were all gone, then they bought the really, really nice house. And it was bigger than the one we
Properties are
grew
nice
up
there.
in.
There's a
They
lot of land.
probably could
It's pricey.
afford it then,
Yeah.
because there were 4 of us. But they lived right, like as soon as you cross the bridge, the James River Bridge from Newport News,
That's where I
and
live.
it's
I think I know
left,
exactly where
you
your
make a
parents
left
stayed at.
turn. Yeah, a left turn that you make into Carrollton. And
I know
they
what you're
built
talking
it up
about.
more now.
Yep.
Because it used to be like just one road with nothing, with just like some ponds and trees. And
I
then
was
you got
always
to
stuck
the
behind a
home.
pig truck. Always stuck behind a pig truck. And it was always like
Okay.
one-way traffic. I would get caught behind it on
Yes.
my way to work. And
Yes.
20 minutes of driving behind that pig truck was not a good look.
Yeah. But there were very few Black people where they lived, and their neighbor wouldn't even talk to
Wow.
them. I mean, till they died. I mean, they never would speak. Now, one neighbor on one side did speak out, but the other neighbor would not speak.
Mm.
And they were
That's not
there for
surprising,
years,
though. That's not
decades,
surprising to me. Yeah.
So that's Isle of Wight. It's white. See, the Isle of Wight is not WHITE, although that would be a funny parody.
It would. It would.
It's WIGHT.
Yep.
And so it's ISLE, Isle of Wight County. And that would be like good satire,
I think it would actually.
You should try that.
Yeah. I've been like toying around with like adult ideas of like adult characters working in a school together in a community like that. So I don't know. That might be.
Look at Gwen. Gwen has been planning books all night.
I love it. I'm always open to ideas. Yes.
I'm always telling my friends, you should write this book, but it's based on what they're already writing. Yeah. And they're looking for ideas. I'm like, the idea is right in front of you. Here, do it. You could do it. And when people explain to me, sometimes they'll say, I want to write a book about my life. And then I said, well, really, unless you're famous, nobody cares. And people want to read something. Well, you're gonna get beef from family members if you spill any family secrets. Yeah, they might not talk to you for years. Do you really want to do that? But if there's something about something that happened in your life that's interesting that you can use just that crucible. It doesn't have to be a whole lot.
Well, I tell people all the time, just exactly what you said, that I tell people nobody cares about your life, but what they do care about is your message. So what message do you want to give people? If you're wanting to write about your life or you want to write about yourself, what do you want people to take away from that? And that's what you should concentrate on. And you don't have to write about your life from when you were born all the way up to present
Exactly.
day.
Yep, absolutely.
Exactly. It's
You need to tell this to my dad. My dad always jokes that you should write a book about me, about my life. And I'm like, Dad. So maybe I can take a slice of it or something.
Yeah, just take a slice of it and write about that slice.
Absolutely. You can even take a slice and make it fiction.
Yep. Yep.
You know, because I tell you, I had some things that have happened to me. They will never be told to
anybody. Everybody doesn't need to know my business.
But I might make a fictional character that experienced those things. So, you know, I don't think it's necessarily helpful to tell people all the bad stuff that's happened to you, because, you know, how can it benefit them or you? And it's gonna, you know, make them look at you differently too. Yeah. And for what? Everybody has stuff they would rather everybody not know. Mm-hmm. Everybody.
And that's what, because like I try to integrate a lot of like things that I've either seen or things that have happened to me in my writing, and I even vaguely kind of base some characters on characteristics of someone I know. But since I write like for younger readers, I always feel like I need to kind of, even though I write about dark things, like my first one was about his sister going missing. And, this one is about, things that kind of just unravel after like this racist moment. But I always try to like put a seed of hope in the stories, just because I don't want the readers to walk away being like, that's just the way the world is. Like I want them to see how the world is, but I also want them to kind of have some hope of like, oh, well, maybe if I try this, or maybe if I do that, or maybe if I talk to more people, I could have a better outcome or something along those lines. So I try to give a realistic, somewhat positive ending to some of my stories. Yeah.
I was watching Till.
Yes. And I haven't I've seen the one on the mini series on TV, and I love that one so much that I didn't see the motion picture one yet because I didn't know.
I saw the motion picture just recently. I was on because I was flying back from overseas, and that was one of the movies that was available. Yeah. And I remember when I was watching the previews, I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this movie because of one of the statements that the producer made. She said, we want to come at this movie. We want to come to this story from a place of love and celebration. I was like, she about to make this movie corny. I don't want to watch this. But I really appreciated the way they told the story. Once I sat down and watched it, it really wasn't as much about the death as it was about the awakening of his mother after this happened to her son. And just to watch how she was empowered. Not just externally, but internally. It just kind of reminds me of what you were just talking about. It's how you can tell a story, and you can celebrate a story, but you don't have to go into every little detail, every gory little detail, and you can still tell a powerful story.
Absolutely. And it's so funny you say that because my main character, the Black girl, she understands like she kind of like has a better understanding of her Black identity. Like she grew up around this white family, and because of that moment and because of like these people she's introduced to throughout the course of the story, she starts to have more of appreciation for her culture. She wants to go to an HBCU. She's really into that majorette dancing, which was so fun for me to research, by the way. So I was looking at all the majorette dancing because that's like something that she wants to do. And I just really wanted to kind of be like this coming of age, powerful, like, of this girl that's coming into her own and really appreciating her natural hair, appreciating her dark skin, and, really like loving herself as a Black person in the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what span of time does the book occur? Like the storyline? Is it like with one school year?
It occurs actually over a course of 6 weeks. And so it's kind of like told because something really bad happens even after the racist moment. And so it's like a flash forward backwards as to like, this is the bad thing that happened. And then we go back in the past and see what built up to this bad moment. And so like
Okay.
all of this kind of goes underway in like 6 weeks, basically. So it was pretty tight.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, but it's good to write. It's a story that takes place over a short period of time can be very good because you're not having to deal with just life changes, you know.
The book I'm writing now takes place in one night, and I'm on I'm on the struggle street. One night.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, how am I making, like, what did I do? What did I get myself into? But yeah.
Yeah. So your two characters, you have a virtual book launch
Yes,
on the day that the book comes out.
I do.
Nice.
I do. It's
And
with
it's at the Fountain
Mountain
Bookstore. Now,
Bookstore.
where is that?
That's in Richmond, actually. That's in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
And I get to have a conversation with one of my favorite authors, probably my most favorite author, Tiffany D. Jackson, who like does a lot of brilliant YA stories, both like dark contemporary thrillers, and she's even entered the horror vein. And she also does some romantic stuff too. Like she teamed up with Nicola Yoon and Daniel Clayton and you know, Angie Thomas, and they all, and Nick, I'm having a brain fart. Sorry. You know, Dear Martin, Nick Stone, yes, who helped me launch my first book, but all of them teamed together to do like Black love stories too. So she's just doing amazing things in the field. And so I was really honored that she, you know, volunteered to say, yeah, you know, I'll help her launch this book because I've been
That's
a fan
nice.
of her for a while. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's great. So, how do you use your background as a school counselor to develop your stories? Do you use actual things that have happened, like, or do you use imaginary things and how you would approach it as a counselor?
Yeah. I think more so, even in this book that's coming out in 2 weeks, I definitely took a lot of my experience as a school counselor because, you know, I based the book in that world. I changed some of the names, but it was just like mainly the vibe and the environment that I really wanted to capture, like what it was like to live in that world for that time period that I did. But also, like I've noticed in the first 2 books, I always find a reason to throw in the school counselor. I'm trying to find a way to get it in the third book. It's hard because it's one night. But I always try to give a shout out to the school counselors. And also, I think the main purpose, the main drive is that I just want to write more books for my students that didn't see themselves when they will come to my office and they will complain about certain required readings and their selection that they had to choose from. And so that was like, my students are the ones that like made me take the leap and to really take my writing seriously. Because at the time when I was working with them, we didn't have all these like, you know, great Black authors writing for that. You know, we had a few of them, but there are more now. And I love to see it. And I want to just keep adding to the shelves because I want them to be able to see themselves, you know.
That's important. I think that growing up, we didn't always see ourselves.
Yes.
I love the fact that in this day and age, we are changing that conversation so that kids can see that they really do matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And I love now that, you know, with my 2 youngins, like they actually have so many books of kids that look like them, you know, and then I'm also making sure that I'm introducing them to other cultures too, as well, because I also think that's important. Because I do want, you know, white households, I think it's just as important for them to have some of these amazing, powerful Black, LGBTQ, Asian, just like, you know, just introduce your children to the world out there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that leads me to the question I was going to ask you about. How do you think white students or teachers or counselors or parents will perceive the story you've told?
You know what's interesting
Or it
is
might
that
be hard to get into the mind of it.
Yeah, I was nervous about that with the first book, but I would say that I've heard from a lot of white readers and particularly like teachers. Like I've had some virtual visits at the time with white teachers and, you know, white librarians who really embraced it because they thought it was drawing attention to, you know, something that was important that was going on. Yeah, so I was really surprised by that because I was waiting for backlash. I'm worried. I'm kind of worried because I do tap with this whole kind of Karen/Becky thing, because that's what they call like the younger ones. They call them Beckys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm curious how the feedback might be, but I'm hoping I try to empathize more than one side, I would say. So I hope, in a way, it's not the white girl Kylie story, but I hope I gave enough of her on the page to show why she made certain decisions that she did. So we shall see. I don't know.
Okay. And well, I have one last question. They want to show you to show us the cover of the book again. Where did the name Karen come from? I know you probably can't answer that, but you know, of all the names people could have picked for this situation, how did it start to be
no
Karen?
clue.
I wondered that, because Karen isn't necessarily all that common a name when you names like Heather or Megan or the,
and I feel bad because my editor, who is brilliant, her name is Karen. And I'm like, I promise this is not about you. But yeah, so I have no clue. I'm worried now that the next ring of stuff is going to be like a Pam, and I'm not going to be like not wanting to leave the house. Like, oh no. But yeah, that's a great
funny
question. I'm gonna have to do some digging. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Well, Pam, thanks so much for being a guest. Congratulations on the town. This town is on fire. And I just hope you have a successful launch and you sell a whole bunch of copies.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me again. I love being here, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Okay, well, when your next book, when they schedule it, we'll be on it. So
awesome. All right. Thank you all.
Okay, take
Thank
care.
you. You have a wonderful evening.
You too. Bye.
Good night. Okay, before we bring on our next guest, we are going to do the trivia questions, and Rhonda's going to put them in the chat. And the first book is The Probability of Everything by Sarah Everett. The question is, in the book, 11-year-old Kimmy Carter sees an asteroid hover in the sky. What is the asteroid's name? That's one. And book two, Even If the Sky is Falling, is edited by Taj McCoy. And this book is an anthology, including the work of 6 authors. Name one of the authors. So I'm trying not to show you the authors' names. I'm showing you just the top part. You have to look it up. Name any one of the authors and you'll get your copy of the book. So we're bringing on our final guest. His name is Devin Robinson.
Come on, Stephanie.
Both of them or just one?
The first one.
Okay. All right, of course. Devin, I've known Devin for I don't know how many years. Maybe he'll remember how many years. But I've known him, and I don't even know if we've ever met in person. And I can't remember how I even knew about you or connected with you or anything. I don't remember, but we've been connected.
I remember the story.
Oh, you do?
Let's hear the story.
Okay, let's hear it, because I don't remember. I know
it's nothing dramatic.
Okay, well, I know it's not dramatic.
I was speaking at a Black Expo. I'm sorry, some technical difficulties I had, so I don't know if I missed anything. I'm just kind of trying to play catch up.
No, you're good. You're good.
But I was speaking in Houston at one of the expos, and you were walking around, and we met, we connected, and you saw one of my books, and you told me about listing it on your website. And then
okay. Well,
and this was
it was 15 years.
15 years, 16 years.
Okay,
Yep.
Well, see, wow. I wouldn't have remembered that. I didn't know where it was. I couldn't.
I know a busy woman.
A long time, but I don't know. I meet so many people.
Yes, you do.
Over so many years. that it starts to like, unless it was something dramatic,
Yeah.
or sometimes I just remember because of situations or whatever. But that makes sense because our first two National Black Book Festivals were with the Black Expo.
Yeah.
So that means you were speaking at either the first one or the second one. And that's where I met. And see, a book like the ones you write, Devin is a person after my own heart. He's a serial entrepreneur. Just it's in him. It's like entrepreneurship is in me. It's gonna be in me forever until I leave this earth. It's just who I am. And I like to share with other people too about how they can do it or be better at it or have more hope or success or be more realistic. A lot of times people who are entrepreneurs or want to jump into it, they have a lack of realism. But anyway,
no, you're right though about having a lack of realism because people don't realize they say they want to work for themselves. They don't want a 9 to 5, but then what they wind up getting is instead of an 8-hour job, they now have a 24-hour job.
Exactly.
You
set your own hours, but you work all the time.
They think they're eliminating one boss, and then they realize they have many customers.
Right, so they do,
they trade that in.
But they don't have somebody telling them what to do directly. They don't have somebody watching them. They don't have anybody except customers, like you said. They don't, but you don't have anybody directly that you have to answer to. You have to answer to your customers though. If you plan to be in business, if you plan for it to be a long-term thing.
Yes, and you it's not as rigid as you have to make adjustments to keep your job, but you do have to make adjustments to keep customers. So it's kind of like a kin type of relationship because the one who pays you is your customer. So when you're on a job and you're working for someone, that's really your customer as well because you're selling your skills to that employer. In exchange for your time and your skills, they pay you money. So it's kind of this, quasi boss relationship that you have with your customers, because if you want to stay profitable, you do have to make some adjustments and appeal to your target audience.
Right. And I like what you said about being profitable, because one thing some people don't realize is it's not about the revenue as much as it is the bottom line, which is the profit, because you can take in a whole lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And lose a whole lot of money. You can take in money and be losing money every month.
You see it all the time on Shark Tank where they'll say, we made $2 million last year. Okay, well, how much of that were you able to keep? Well, what were your what's your profit and loss? And they'll be like, well, we actually only were able to keep $100,000, and we're like,
we lost money. We lost money.
Yeah.
Or here's the kicker for me. We didn't pay ourselves. Well, okay, how long can that last?
Right.
Yeah. Success in business is a lot more elusive than a lot of people expect or anticipate. People get romanced by the idea of freedom and revenue. Mm-hmm. And it's like people talk about these big companies, they would say, oh, they make tens of millions, hundreds of millions, they can afford XYZ. That's because we tend to focus so much on the revenue and not pay attention to the expenses. So you go into business and all you're thinking about is, oh, I got the plug, for lack of better words. I can buy this thing for $1 and sell it for $2. But you're not thinking about what's in the middle of that. You're just thinking about the product. Maybe you're flipping a product, but what does it cost you to flip that product, right? What does it cost you to acquire that customer, the marketing? Is it a sustainable business? So what is the real profit that you walk away with? And can you replicate that over and over enough for it to take care of everything, right? Because it's not that you're just flipping the money to go buy more of that product. If you really want to be a business person, you got to be able to sustain an establishment, right? Staff, major expenses, and people often don't think about the things like employee benefits. Like if you really want to go big, You know, it's a lot of things that you got to put in there, but so many people overlook that because that's not the sexy part of business. That's not the part that, you know, they want to pay a lot of attention to. They just focus on revenue and how much I can make. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I train, and that is typically what they talk about. How much I can make doing this. And it's like, yeah, but what does it cost you to make that?
Right.
Yeah, you're not really,
What is it?
yeah, so a lot of businesses are just moving money. You know, they're not making money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they get paid, then they have to pay the rent, they have to pay the utilities, they have to pay the employees, they have to pay for supplies, they have to pay, you know, you have a lot of overhead. So by the time you pay all of that, what's left? That's what you make, what you bring in, and you know, I had to learn that the hard way, you know, over the years, the School of Hard Knocks and all that. Trial and error experience. There's nothing like it. There's nothing better than it, because I don't think you can really learn it without doing it. But it's not about the revenue. It's about what's bringing something down to the bottom line. And a lot of times, the overhead that we think that we need, we don't really need it.
That's true
you can save a lot of money by cutting, and by overhead, I mean rent, utility, the things that you have to pay for every single month without fail, regardless of if you bring in $1 or $10,000 or $100,000. These are the bills you have to pay. And so, I believe entrepreneurship also is not for everybody. Now, your book, was this your last book? It's Blackpreneurship. That's what you call it.
Yeah.
And you have 50 obstacles Black entrepreneurs face and how to overcome them.
Yes.
So you have a copy of your book with you that you can show?
I don't have a copy with me, and I'm so upset that I don't.
Okay, well, we'll have to find, is it on your website?
Yes, you can go 50obstacles-to-overcome.com. That's one website, and that's, you know, for the book.
Oh, okay, I was gonna put Devin Robinson.
You can go to devinrobinson.com. It's there as well.
Okay, good. So just give us 3 of the obstacles. The most.
It's a book I love. It is a book I love so much.
Okay.
Because it's a book that's written off of pure grit and pure experience.
Okay.
You know, so forgive me, but I gotta, like, you know, get a little bit of sauce in there before I talk straight about the book. But, you know, a lot of people really believe that entrepreneurship is the same across the board, and it is not. And what I teach people, and what I've been able to do as well, because, you know, with my businesses, and I got multiple businesses and I got dozens of employees, to the standard of success in business, I have successful business. I'm very successful by business standards in America. Doesn't matter what race it is, right? So if I've entered into the realm of being more successful than the majority of even white people, right? But in order to get there, I had to learn and master things about being a Black entrepreneur. And many people would say, oh, it's all the same thing. And, you know, I retort with, well, if you believe racism is in this country, then why would you think it stopped because you open a business? Why would you think, like, as soon as I open my doors, now everyone's going to play fair, right? And the truth is, many Black businesses have obstacles that we try to solve with mainstream solutions that don't speak the Black language or the Black culture. And we have things that are not just systematic necessarily in the sense of we're being oppressed, but some of these things exist because of just our culture, right? So it is much harder for a Black person to get adequate funding for their business. That's largely because we have fewer banks, and these banks don't speak our language and understand the businesses of our community. So they would look at something that we have and be like, that's not going to succeed, or you're a high risk, you know, that kind of stuff. We also have trouble getting high skilled workers because we're small Black businesses and we're not we're kind of overlooked. It's kind of like we're a subset of the economy. They don't look at us as part of the mainstream. So a lot of qualified talent does not pursue working for Black businesses until those Black businesses are at the level of like a Damon John or a Magic Johnson. Then they'll jump on board because
Right.
they've pushed through the obstacle of being a Black business, and now they're seen as a successful business, right? And that's one of the obstacles. Black sophisticates is what I call them. Those of us that go to college, we got the degrees, we got the sophistication, we got the etiquette, and then we graduate with all this acquired knowledge, and then we decide to take it to the highest bidder rather than taking it back to our community to either start a business or work for a Black business. So there's like a talent drain in our community because these people want to have the 2-car garage and a BMW in the yard right now. They want to live in the suburbs right now. They're not looking for sacrifice or anything. So these people, the 300,000 Black graduates that we get annually from colleges, they're going straight to mainstream businesses. They're going straight to government. They're not starting a Black business or working for them. And another obstacle we have is humor, right? So I talk about this in the book, that when our Black comedians are talking about Black entrepreneurship or Black businesses, they always use the worst end of the example of that business to make it funny, right? So they say, oh, you Black people, our credit is bad. Or I went into the business and, you know, he came to the door with a sock on his head, or whatever other spoof you want to say. But we find the jokes out of the worst part of our Black businesses, right? And that is funny. But then when we talk about the white businesses, we talk about how perfect they are and how great their credit is. And he was talking like a Poindexter, and he was so on point that I need to have me a white friend as well. So there's truth in criticism and there's truth in humor. So we're laughing at these things, not realizing that subconsciously we're putting in our mind an expectation that a Black business is going to be shoddy. So then what do? We don't go to the Black business because we don't expect that business to be very successful. Then we have issues.
So long. I hate when we always make ourselves the butt of the joke. We
Absolutely
make ourselves the worst end of the spectrum. And when we start to make these jokes all the time, it goes into our subconscious. Yes. And we really believe these things about ourselves.
We believe it.
I mean, we don't believe. We would rather go, and I saw somebody said there's somebody who is paying $3 for water because they refuse to pay you 50 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll do that where we think that somebody else is. They used to say we used to think that the white man's ice was colder.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's a thing that we carry out subconsciously, that we have an expectation of a lower business. So then when we shop at the Black business, we call it charity. If you notice, a lot of Black people refer to Black businesses in a charitable sense, saying, right, I'm going to go support my Black business. But when we're going to Texaco gas station or the grocery stores, we don't say, I'm going to support corporate America. We're going to support the Arabs or the Hispanics, or we're going to support, because we're going to Home Depot, I'm going to support, Arthur Blank. We just go shop. We just get our stuff. When it comes to us, it's like charity. It's like almost like, oh, let me remember to do my tithes this week in church. And then I'll just do my drive-by church thing. And then I go back to the clubs and do whatever I want to do for the rest of the week. We go back to doing what we want to do for the rest of the week, right, when it comes to our economics and how we spend. Then we have issues like being the wage gap, right? So the wage gap creates an issue. That's more of a systematic issue. It creates an issue because there are multiple things that's happening. The Black community is the only community that we are not the number one employer of ourselves, right? So that is an issue in itself.
Right.
Our number one employers are corporate America, white
government,
and the government, right? But other communities, they're the number one employers of themselves. That actually leads to a lot of the wage gap issues, because your hiring manager, if you look at the demographic of your hiring manager, you tend to see a lot of hires like the demographics of your hiring manager. unless there's some type of diversity program in the corporation, if you have a Hispanic hiring manager or recruiter or manager, you're going to see a lot of Hispanics on the staff. I don't know if you ever paid attention to that, right? So, and then we have Black people on the staff as hiring managers, but that's far and few between. We don't have that type of payroll power. And I talk about that as well. We like to talk about our spending power, but we don't really have power if we don't have payroll power. So
I agree with that, but do you also think, and because I've only seen it mostly with us, where we will purposely not hire a Black person if we're in that position because we don't want to be seen as giving the Black person a chance or showing favoritism to a Black person. Or sometimes we'll see Black people who, let's say there's a group of people of all different races. Sometimes the Black people will purposely not sit together because they don't want everybody to think that they're ganging up or that they're trying to group up. And so I wonder if it's the same thing.
It doesn't work for us. That's my point. It doesn't work for us. It works for every other group. You're right. We're actually the most fair race in America. We're the ones that embrace other people. That's why we're in the situation we're in now. We're the tribal people. We want everyone to come, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya. And we would deliberately push another one of us to the side just to prove to people that we're fair and we're balanced, right? So we're not confident about, like, I talk to people and I'm like, sometimes when we're talking in public and we whisper the word white, like we want to say a white person, we tone ourselves down, white, like it's still in Jim Crow. What are you talking about? Say white. They're white, we Black, they're brown. Why can't we say that? That doesn't make sense. So it's like we do this thing subconsciously, like we're waiting for them to come, lead us off in cuffs because we said, yeah, the white man on my job, he was the one that did it. The white people, we have this like subversive attitude about ourselves that does not make sense.
It's not.
It does not make sense.
I say that every other group supports their own businesses except us.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Everybody else does that but us, which really puts us at a severe disadvantage because every other group supports their own business.
I was telling someone the other day that we don't want to admit it, but the quality of life of Black people is based on the kindness of white people. We did not get here on our own. We had to have compliant white people to assist us in the things that we have, in the place that we live, the redlining of the school districts and stuff. We're not the ones in control of that. We were not the ones in control of getting us, equal rights. And it was white people that obliged and assisted us in getting to these places. So if that's the case, we got to understand that we still got a lot of healing to do. We have yet to overcome. We can sing "We Shall Overcome" all day, but we have yet to overcome because we're still in certain spots. And that, finish off my point on the wage gap. That wage gap is an issue because then we have a wage gap. We're going to be building wealth at a much slower rate. We're going to be building credit at a much slower rate. And then when it's time for us to take our risk on our entrepreneur endeavors, it is not at adequate levels as other groups because we're just not able to invest at the same levels because of the wage gap. So there 50 of the obstacles. I think I just listed 4, but there are 50 obstacles specifically that I don't just pontificate on stuff. So I'm talking about the obstacles, but then I also go into the panacea, or what I think is the panacea for each of the obstacles, the solution for it. So we speak on, I put the solution with every single obstacle of what steps we need to take. And this is just straight up off of me building businesses and being able to push through the black ceiling, the black glass ceiling, in order to be a successful entrepreneur by any race standards in America. So that's what Blackpreneurship, 50 obstacles Black entrepreneurs face and how to overcome them. That's really what it's about.
That's a really, really good point. I'm being a Black entrepreneur myself. I feel like I need to see this book because you are killing every stereotype that of Black entrepreneurs, you know, where we don't see ourselves as enough, so we project that onto other people.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here taking it all in.
Yeah, when Devin spoke, I don't remember what he said, but it was profound enough to where I wanted to stay in touch, because I don't, you know, I like people who are confident, think outside the box, and consistently going somewhere good, somewhere positive. And you always share your what you're doing. Now that we have a short amount of time left, I do want to just briefly, you were doing something for a while with the beauty supply stores. Are you still doing that? Is that
Yes,
still
I am. I think that was one of the books that you really gravitated to. I think I remember that was the one that was listed on your
because
website.
I interviewed you for one of my book on the Black church and how money moves from the Black church out of the Black community every weekend. It's called Weekend Wealth Transfer. So I interviewed you for that book.
Yes, I remember.
So tell us about the beauty supply, because I know we buy probably more beauty supplies than any other group per capita, but we don't control that industry.
Absolutely
and you were
correct.
working on making changes in that regard.
Yes, so it's you know, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, just over 50, it's close to 55 billion dollar industry, and we're 96% of the consumers, less than 3% of the owners, and it's one of the businesses that I started back in 2005. Just a one little beauty supply store, and it morphed into me writing the book, taking it back, how to become a successful Black beauty supply store owner. From there, it just kept morphing and morphing into conferences. And now I actually have a school called Beauty Supply Institute that people travel across the country to come and learn how to open their stores. And to date, we've opened 222 stores all across the country, 4 in Canada, 2 in the Caribbean. And we're continuing to open. I think right now, I think I heard today in one of the meetings that we have 34 that we're actively negotiating leases for now, getting them ready to be open by the end of the year. We're going to have over 250 by the end of the year. But that's one of the things we're doing. It's so ironic that this Saturday is our annual summer conference. You can learn about it at beautysupplyconference.com. We're sold out already. Registrations are closed, but you can prepare for our winter conference, which takes place in Los Angeles. But that's going to be this Saturday as well. So we train people, give them the exposure and the information they need, because the Asians are not giving us this information. They want to keep us locked out. They're trying to keep us locked out. And we have the information, and we provide that for people trying to get into this industry.
And that's a good thing, because we spend billions on that, and it's almost all of it's going to Asians. Specifically Koreans. Now I don't know.
It's Koreans.
It goes beyond Koreans, but I know the Koreans control a lot of it.
You have the Middle Easterners in some parts of the country, Florida, New York. There's some areas, pockets of the country where they are dominating as well. But Koreans are the #1 dominators of the industry. They own a lot of the distribution, the premium hair, that kind of stuff. And you know, they're the ones that corner out the market. They can't keep you out, but there's just things you need to know in order to succeed in that business. So
they try to keep us out, though.
Yeah, they intentionally try to keep us out, but it's
because
it's a lucrative.
Charge more, I'm sure.
Say that again.
So, or the suppliers will charge more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we battle all those obstacles, but it's a very lucrative business. I mean, a one store can turn you into a wealthy person, and they know this, you know. And what they do is they siphon the money from our community, because they don't live there. They set it up there, get the sales, treat you bad, treat you poorly, treat our women poorly. You know, I see them doing this stuff, treating our Black women poorly, and you know, you got people show up and start protesting, talking about, oh, we need to treat our women better. And I'm like, listen, man, we're not here to compete. We're here to replace. We're here for market share. We're not here for them. We don't want to teach them how to give us better customer service.
Right.
We don't want that. Let them be who they are, and let us continue to replace these stores rather than helping them to be our oppressor. So that doesn't make sense, because they're not sitting next to us in the church pews and in our classrooms. They're taking that money elsewhere. So, you know, that's a business that was close to my heart, or still is, that made me just create a whole institute to battle that industry.
Well, Devin, we are at the very end of our time. We could talk for at least an hour, but I'm so happy I was able to get you to come on the show, because people need to hear this message. And go to devinrobinson.com, or do you have a Professor Devin at something at your social media?
Oh, my social media is Professor Devin Robinson. My social
Okay,
media,
Professor Devin
media.
Robinson. You'll learn a lot. It's like going to school yourself. And he has a lot of free information, but buy his book as well. Well, we're at the end of our time. Thank you so much, Devin.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good seeing you again.
Yeah, continued success for everything.
Thank you so much. Same to you.
Okay.
I had a great time talking with you. You have a great night.
Same here. Y'all have a great evening.
Okay, well, that's the end of our show for this week. We'll be back next week with another episode of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off for tonight.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.